Hey, everyone! Welcome back to the channel, where we dive into ancient tales and uncover the wisdom hidden in some of the world's most captivating stories. Today, we're talking about one of the famous tales from 1001 Nights, a story that has survived for centuries, full of suspense, magic, and mystery. This is the tale of the merchant and the goblin. This story is part of a larger collection called the Arabian Nights, a rich tapestry of tales from across the Middle East, South Asia, and North Africa. These stories were shared from one generation to another, just like how we're doing it now. So, let's buckle up and explore this fascinating world. Let me take you back to a time when merchants would journey through vast deserts, trading spices, silks, and precious goods. Imagine the dangers they faced: sandstorms, bandits, and even supernatural beings. Our story begins with one such merchant. Tired from a long day of trading, he stops to rest under a tree. He takes out a few dates from his bag and begins to eat them, as anyone would after a long day's work. But little does he know, these harmless actions are about to lead him into an encounter that will change his life forever. As the merchant relaxes, throwing the pits on the ground, a terrifying figure emerges, a goblin. But not just any goblin. This creature is furious, accusing the merchant of killing its son with the date pits. Now, let's pause for a second. Imagine being in the merchant's shoes. You've just had a long day, you're finally relaxing, and suddenly this mythical being shows up, accusing you of a crime you didn't even know you committed. Crazy, right? But this moment is a great metaphor for life. Sometimes, we're caught off guard by situations we don't see coming, just like the merchant. And how we react in those moments can define our fate. The merchant, terrified, pleads for his life. He explains that it was an accident, that he had no intention of harming anyone, let alone the goblin's son, but the goblin is not easily swayed. Just when it seems like the merchant's fate is sealed, he begs for one last wish. He asks the goblin to allow him 1 year, just 1 year to return home, settle his affairs, and say goodbye to his loved ones. And the goblin surprisingly agrees. It tells the merchant to return in exactly 1 year, or it will come to find him. Talk about a deal with the devil, right? The merchant goes home and tries to live his life as normally as possible, but the weight of the goblin's promise looms over him. He spends time with his family, cherishes every moment, knowing that in 1 year, he must return to meet his fate. Now, let's think about this. What would you do if you knew you only had 1 year left to live? Would you live differently? Would you make different choices? The merchant's story is a reminder to live with intention. None of us know how much time we have, so make it count. The year passes, and true to his word, the merchant returns to the tree where he first met the goblin. He's prepared to face whatever fate awaits him. The goblin is impressed. The merchant kept his word. But just as the goblin is about to strike the final blow, 3 other figures appear. These 3 old men, each with their own strange and magical stories, offer the goblin a deal. They ask the goblin to hear their stories, and in exchange for every story the goblin finds fascinating, it must give the merchant 1/3 of his life back. And so begins a storytelling contest of sorts. One by one, the old men tell their tales, each more fantastical than the last. And the tale of the first sheikh and the gazelle. This story is part of the previous tale about the first sheikh and the gazelle. The sheikh explains that the gazelle with him is actually his cousin, whom he married when she was young. They lived together for about 30 years without having any children. He then took a concubine who bore him a son, described as beautiful as the full moon. When the boy turned 15, the sheikh traveled. Meanwhile, his cousin, who had learned magic from a young age, transformed the boy into a calf and his mother into a cow. Upon the sheikh's return, she told him that the concubine had died and the boy had fled. The sheikh was heartbroken and mourned for a year. During the Eid al-Adha festival, he asked the shepherd for a fat cow, who sent him the transformed concubine. When slaughtered, the cow contained only skin and bones, so he gave it back to the shepherd and asked for a fat calf. The shepherd sent him the transformed son. Upon seeing the calf, the sheikh cut its rope and cried. Moved by compassion, he returned the calf to the shepherd and asked for another cow. As dawn approached, Scheherazade paused the story, and the king resolved not to execute her until he heard the rest of her tale, the tale of the second sheikh and the two dogs. In the second night, Scheherazade continues the story of the first sheikh with the gazelle and introduces the second sheikh with the two dogs. The second sheikh recounts his tale with the dogs, revealing they are his brothers. After their father's death and inheriting a shop from his estate, his brothers urged him to travel, which he did. He married a woman who was his brothers, envious of his wealth, conspired to kill him and threw him into the sea. His wife, who was a jinn, saved him and later revealed her true nature and her plan to kill his brothers. Upon returning home, the sheikh discovered that his brothers had been transformed into dogs by the jinn's sister. Impressed by the tale, the jinn granted the sheikh a third of the man's blood. The tale of the third sheikh and the mule. Scheherazade then narrates the story of the third sheikh with the mule. His wife, discovering his infidelity, transformed him into a dog. He wandered until he reached a butcher's shop, where the butcher's daughter uncovered his true identity. She restored him to his original form, and he asked her to transform his wife in the same manner. She gave him water to sprinkle on his wife, turning her into a mule. The jinn then granted him the remaining portion of the man's blood and pardoned him. And, with every story, the goblin becomes more and more impressed. By the end, the goblin is so moved by their stories that it decides to spare the merchant's life completely. He is free to go. So, what's the takeaway from this story? Sure, it's a tale of magic, goblins, and talking animals, but at its heart, it's about mercy, the power of storytelling, and the importance of keeping your promises. The merchant's honesty and bravery saved his life, and the wisdom of the old men reminded the goblin, and us, of the value of compassion. It's a lesson we can all apply to our lives. How we approach difficult situations, how we tell our own stories, and how we show kindness can shape our fate. And that, my friends, is the tale of the merchant and the goblin. I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I did. If you did, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what your favorite part of the story was. And if you'd like to hear more stories from the Arabian Nights, let me know which one you want next. Until next time, keep exploring the stories that shape our world.